they have to over here. Yeah, we're gonna see King Kong today.
If you need to reach me for a door of every car, and any reason, there is an intercom by the door of every car. Here we go. We will first be crossing over our Bronx River to be transported to Asia as if by magic. We will see animals from China to India, Cambodia to Nepal, and more. Here at the Bronx Zoo, we are the headquarters of the Wildlife Conservation Society, or the WCS, where we have field scientists and zookeepers working here and all over the world to help protect our wild animals and wild places. This first meadow we're coming into is what we call the Kanha meadow, and if you look over to the left-hand side, you should see a couple of our Babirusa deer. We've got another Babirusa deer over here on the right-hand side against the back fence. Now take a look at these Babirusa antlers. You'll see that they are big and quite impressive. These antlers are where the Babirusa deer get their name, because Babirusa means 12 tined in Hindi, and Babirusa deer antlers have 12 to 14 tines on them. Now in a moment we are going to see our Bactrian deer. They're over here on the right-hand side in the distance. We'll get a bit closer to them as we head throughout the meadow. But these Bactrian deer are our newest additions to our field here. So you can welcome them to the Bronx Zoo family as it is their first year here with us. The Bactrian deer were actually thought to be extinct in the 1970s. It wasn't until 2013, almost 45 years later, that the Bactrian deer were found accidentally by an expedition in Afghanistan, and we realized that they were not extinct. Now we know they're not extinct, but they are still endangered, so we're helping them out here at the Bronx Zoo. Now here's Michelle, one of our expert zookeepers, to talk a bit more about our meadow here. And don't worry, our Bactrian deer are still coming over here on the right-hand side for you to see in just a moment.
Hi, my name is Michelle. I'm part of the Wild Asia Keeper team. We call this area Kanha Meadow, where we care for about 40 Babirusa deer, 15 axis deer, 10 black buck, and a pair of muntjac. We start our day by checking on all the animals, making sure they are healthy, behaving normally, and safe. Sometimes, fawns and calves are born overnight. Newborns are given a neonatal exam, which includes weighing, vaccination, and tagging for identification purposes. While the animals are in the meadow, we prepare their nighttime holding areas so that they have a safe and clean place to spend the night.
Now as we turn the corner here, we are seeing our Mongolian wild horses. They're all resting in their herd down here at the bottom of their field. These horses are also called Przewalski horses, and you can see that they look very similar to the domestic horses we're used to seeing, but they do have a few key differences. These horses are shorter and stockier than domestic horses. They have a mane that stands straight up like a mohawk, so they have a good hair day every single day. And they are missing the forelock, which is the part of the mane that would typically fall over the forehead of a domestic horse. Now just like the dodo bird or the dinosaur, we know that animals that are extinct no longer exist. And while we will not be seeing a T-Rex on our tour today, these Mongolian wild horses were actually extinct in nature in the 1960s. But thanks to successful breeding efforts here at the Bronx Zoo and at other zoos around the world, we have been able to successfully reintroduce these horses back into their natural habitats of Northeast and Central Asia. Now, we have exhibited these horses here at the Bronx Zoo since 1902, which is just a few years after we opened in 1899. And in that time, we have had over 50 Mongolian wild horse foals born right here at our beautiful zoo. Now, headed into this next meadow, we are able to see our brow-antlered deer right in front of us as we enter. The brow-antlered deer get their name from the shape of the male's antlers, which when they are full grown, they look like eyebrows coming out of their heads, almost at 90-degree angles. Now the brow-antlered deer right now in our herd do not have any full-grown antlers, but if you come back in a couple months, you will be able to see the full-grown ones and see just how these guys got their names. Now, along with our brow-antlered deer in this field, we also have our gaur. Our gaur are in the back right-hand corner, and we're going to be able to start seeing them in just a moment. The gaur are the largest wild cattle species in the world. They can weigh up to 2,000 pounds, and be 6 feet tall and 10 feet long, which is about the size of a small car. And the gaur are super powerful. They can fight off just about anything that they'd encounter in the wild using those big horns of theirs, including a tiger. Now, both of these species are classified as endangered, with the brow-antlered deer having to resort to feeding on crops in the wild because their natural habitats have been taken over by farming. Now, on our way to our next exhibit, we are going to be passing by this big wooden fence in front of us, and you may also start to hear the rushing traffic of the Bronx River Parkway behind us. This fence helps us to keep the sounds of the concrete jungle out of the Asian one, and helps to keep our next animal, our tiger, feeling right at home. Now, tigers are solitary creatures, so we will only see one in the exhibit at a time, and they're also really good at camouflage, so you may see our tiger before I do, in which case make sure to tell your friends and family so they can see our tiger too. And please make sure that we are staying fully seated while looking for our tiger. Now, as we turn the corner, we're going to start to be able to look for our tiger. Here at the Bronx Zoo, we do care for 2 types of tiger, the Malayan and the Amur. And of the 2, the Amur is larger, and it's also called the Siberian tiger. Now, I'm seeing our tiger on the right-hand side here. She's just on the fence line. She is over to the right of the monorail. This is Suhana, and Suhana is a female Malayan tiger. She's one of our only females and one of our only Malayan tigers here at the Bronx Zoo. Now, she is over still here on the right-hand side. She's kind of following up there along the fence path. Tigers prefer to eat wild pigs and medium-sized deer, and they can eat up to 40 pounds of meat in one sitting, which is the equivalent of 160 hamburgers. And after that, they will not eat for several more days. Now, you'll notice Suhana here has a very sleek look to her fur. She has a bit of a shorter fur, and her fur is also darker in color. If you go to Tiger Mountain today, you'll be able to see our Siberian tigers. They have much longer fur that's lighter in color, and they are bigger. Now, just past Suhana, we have the back of the gaur fields. You can see our gaur hanging out up there. And then we have this big tree that was actually taken down by the thunderstorm that happened this week. And then we have the back of the Kanha meadow, which is the very first meadow that we were in, where we saw our Bactrian and Babirusa deer. Up off in the distance and laying down, you'll see one of our black-buck antelope with the long spiral horns there sticking out of his head. And off farther in the distance, you can see our herd of axis deer laying down. And then you may be able to see a few more of our Babirusa deer sprinkled throughout the backs of these trees here. These are the same deer that we saw in the very first meadow. Now, that black buck that we saw that was up closer to us laying down in the field, they are sexually dimorphic, meaning the males and females look very different from each other. The male black bucks are like the ones we saw with those long spiral horns. They are darker in color, and they are bigger than the females. The females are lighter in color, smaller, and they do not have any horns. Now, turning the corner here, we're going to be passing into a bamboo thicket. Make sure to look close down to the ground to try to find Rhinos, our Babirusa. The Babirusa is part of the wild pig family. They're found on the Indonesian island of Sulawesi. And in the next area, we have our Babirusa, whose name is Kanha. The male Babirusa have 4 tusks, while the females do not have any. And they are endangered, but of course we're helping them out here with conservation efforts at our zoo. Now, passing into the next field, of course, we're seeing our Asian elephants. Our first elephant here is named Happy. And there's a second elephant in the other area. Her name is Patty, and we'll see her closer in just a moment. Both of these lovely ladies are over 50 years old, and they weigh over 10,000 pounds. Now, here's a bit more about our elephant conservation efforts out in the field with our Asian elephants.
WCS works in the field with both African and Asian elephants. Here's a note from our field scientists who work with Asian elephants.
My name is Donny Gunaryadi, and I'm the Elephant Conservation Coordinator for WCS Indonesia. The first time I saw a Sumatran elephant, I thought, this is a magnificent creature. They will be safe because they are so big. But the truth is, they have declined 50% since the 1980s. Even though rats and insects cause more damage to crops than elephants, because the elephant is so huge, psychologically, it seems more threatened. So when there is conflict, the farmers poison the elephants. In response, we created a crop protection unit to mitigate conflict and send the elephants back into the park. And it's been a huge success. Since we started in 2003, no elephants and no people have been killed.
Penny has especially sensitive skin out of all of our rhinos, and so the keepers put sunscreen on her face every single morning. And if you'd like to see more about how keepers put sunscreen on an Indian rhino, you can watch the zoo on Animal Planet, where there's a whole episode dedicated to Penny and her sensitive skin. Indian rhinos, like Penny, have one horn on their nose, but if you'd like to see her two-horned buddies, the southern white rhino, you can head over to the zoo center, where you can see Harry and Zubari, who have
Muddy feet, so it's a bit difficult to see that white stripe at the moment. Most of these up here on the rock are nilgai, but over on the far right-hand side, we do have a smaller sandbar deer. These sandbar deer are the largest deer species in southern Asia. They can weigh up to 250 pounds, up to 650 pounds, and they can be 5 feet tall, and their antlers can be about 3 feet long. Now you can see here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 nilgai, and over on the right-hand side here, close to the fence in front of us, we do have some of our sandbar. Now the sandbar males do like to live by themselves, while the females tend to live in small groups. As for our nilgai antelope, they are the largest antelope species in Asia.